Good afternoon. Welcome to Water in the Smart Home Repartee. My name is John Robinson. I'm the moderator for this discussion. We've got 60 minutes of discussion about where and how water is starting to make inroads into the smart home space, whether it's management of water or functionality of water. The smart home industry is increasingly asking about water, and the water industry is increasingly asking about smart home. So at the confluence of these two industries, there's some interesting opportunities. If you don't know me, my name is John Robinson. I'm a partner at a company called Mazarine Ventures. We are technology investors in innovations that address some aspect of water and wastewater. The built environment or buildings is an area that we're really interested in. And so over the course of the last year and a half or so, we've developed some friendships within water and buildings. And I've got 5 friends joining me in this discussion today. And consider yourselves eavesdropping on our conversation. As it says in the invitation, this is unscripted. So with that, why don't I just look, I guess, Eric, you're below me. I feel like the Brady Bunch here. Eric, why don't you kick us off? Just a quick minute or two, who you are and what you're doing, and then we'll go around to Matt and Mark and Simon. Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. My name's Eric Adler. I'm the CEO at Flume. Currently, I'm sitting at my house like all the rest of us are in this quarantine situation. But what we're doing at Flume is we want to bring water to the smart home, just like you were saying, John. And we want to do it in a very simple, easy, and affordable way. So what we've developed a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, which actually started as a senior engineering project at Cal Poly, is a sensor that goes directly on customers' existing water meter. It's a sensor that wraps around the existing water meter without the need to cut any pipes, without the need to call a plumber, and it monitors all the usage going through that meter and reports both indoor and outdoor usage to customers in real time, on an iOS or Android app. So it really is a whole home monitoring solution specifically for the residential home. And we also work with cities, municipalities, and insurance companies. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. And you're based where?
We're based in San Luis Obispo, California.
Do you have barbershops there?
They don't right now. Unfortunately, I'm going on like month 3 of it's brutal, but this is what we're working with now.
No, so. It looks cool. It looks cool. It looks very surfer California style. I like it. And the horns in the background. What's going on with those horns?
Yeah, that's just part of the it's part of the aesthetic,
Yeah, the Flume mascot that didn't make it.
Exactly.
Cool. Matt.
Hey, John, and hey, everybody. Yeah, my name is Matt Carlson. I'm CEO of Aquanta. We're based in the Washington, D.C. area, and we also don't have any personal grooming services available around here. So I've definitely let myself go over the last couple of months. At any rate, so Aquanta is the manufacturer of the Aquanta Smart Water Heater Controller. We're essentially a smart thermostat for water heaters. Like, I think of us like a Nest or an Ecobee for water heaters. Our story is one of really about water heater energy, but certainly there's water heating usage in the home is something like, I think Eric, you probably know better, like something around a quarter, I think, of the energy or of the water that's used in the home. But water heating is the second largest user of energy in the home, and so Aquanta was developed to bring the water heater into the smart home, but also into the smart grid. So we'll talk more, I'm sure, about different applications in tying the water heater into both the smart home as well as the smart grid and the larger smart building ecosystem.
Good. Thanks, Matt. Mark?
Hey, I'm Mark Hofsek, mathematician. I get to add inventor to the list, an entrepreneur. Our technology, H2No, is also smart water technology, of course. Our mission is to enable cost-effective and sustainable water use. And we're primarily targeting commercial properties. So our technology, similar to Flume, but we attach to a pipe and not the meter. And so in a commercial property where there are complex plumbing systems that may require multiple meters, we've developed a low-cost approach to attach externally to the pipe without cutting it, so that we can tell you exactly how much water is flowing through the pipe and do what's called disaggregation, meaning we can classify the water use as well as detect a leak. And Matt, we discovered something recently, that our technology can also measure the amount of energy that is being used to heat water, which we kind of stumbled upon somewhat serendipitously. But we're starting to pilot that concept as well in commercial properties.
And Mark, you're in Greater Pittsburgh, right?
I am. Conservation Labs is distributed, which so we all, meaning a fancy way of saying we all work from home. But I am in the Pittsburgh area, and the team is spread mostly on the East Coast and Midwest.
Good. Simon? Uh-oh. Can't hear you. No, unfortunately not.
We have our first fatality of a conference call. It always happens.
Yeah, try something else. Just while we're killing time here, I'm not in a sauna, even though it looks like I might be inside a sauna. I'm in the basement of a cabin in the woods, very far away from everything, except there somehow is high-speed internet. Simon, we have you? Okay, until we get you back. So, Mark, just going back to you, tell me a little bit about, at the core of your business is really machine learning, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you're leveraging machine learning and data science to bring your product to life?
Sure. So part of being an inventor means that, well, I invented H2O. So I'm not a engineer. I'm a mathematician. And what I discovered was that we could take sound data, so sound signals from a pipe, and convert those sound signals to accurate water flow information, data, and insights. So what we've done is innovate now, and this takes more than just myself, have innovated a machine learning approach that looks at those thousands of sound measurements that come off of a pipe every second and then converts it to insights. That's kind of the first layer. And then, of course, because we're doing that, we have to solve a number of large and complex issues, like how much of that compute and machine learning happens on the edge versus the cloud, and what's that relationship, and how do you manage energy use when you're doing that much computation, a number of other clever things along the way. So that's the underlying kind of science and technology with it, but the output is very simple. We're just letting our customers know how much water is being used, how it's being used, and if there's leaks in the system.
And then they can make some actions. They can make some decisions based on the report, basically, right?
That's right. I mean, everything has to drive to some form of an action, right? And since our goal is to enable cost-effective and sustainable water use, the sensor can't do that for you. So there has to be a user experience that's appropriate for the restaurant or for a multifamily property, for a home, right? Like Eric is working on. And so in absence of that experience, we can't make people save money, right? We have to encourage them to do that. Sometimes it's very easy. If you have a leak, you want to let them know that there's a leak so they can stop that from happening, and not just losing water, but losing energy and damaging property. If it's a commercial business, they're also potentially losing revenue because of that.
Yeah. Interesting. Simon, do we have you? Don't have audio. You can act something out.
Hold up signs.
Maybe the old reset might work.
I think Simon, can you reset? Can you refresh your browser and log back in? That's the only suggestion. Yeah. Matt, what is the tech behind about Aquanta's ability to deliver actual insights to customers in the built environment?
Yeah, sure. So Aquanta is it's a blue box. It's a controller that has an onboard relay that allows or disallows power to the water heater. We have versions for both gas and electric water heaters, so they have the same form factor, but slightly different electrical hookup and mode of controlling the water heater itself. So the electric version, though, is essentially acting like a switch, right? And then on board that controller, is all kinds of sensing, as well as power metering, as well as an onboard Wi-Fi radio. So that's connecting back to the home network. And then our gas version, it controls the water heater through a serial port, actually, that most gas water heaters have, that we can talk to the ignition control system of the tank. So,
so who's the ideal customer for this product?
So we have two key channels right now, and one is that we have a B2C presence, so you can go online, you can go on our website, go on Amazon, and buy the product. But our main customers today are energy utilities, and so we have dozens of utilities around the country, around North America, really, that are using Aquanta as a way to use the water heater as a grid management resource and as an energy efficiency appliance. And I can get more into that if you want. That's another couple of minutes of discussion. But other key verticals are increasingly in the multifamily space, so building management systems. There's a number of use cases there, home service providers. So there's a half dozen plus verticals that Aquanta is relevant to, just like, again, think about as the analog as a smart thermostat for your home. So similar kind of use cases and channels, although the water heater has some additional use cases that some other smart home appliances and devices don't.
Eric, you're also working with utilities. What's the play? How do utilities fit into water in the smart home?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you guys at Aquanta are working with the energy utilities. With us, we have a very, very natural fit to work with the water utilities, because since our product goes directly on the water meter, we capture the same exact data that the utility is capturing, and all of our readings match the data that the customer gets on the utility bill, right? So when you go to different utilities, every single one of them can have a slightly different need. Some of them, them have satisfaction and customer support issues. There's very few utilities who say, our customers love us and they have a great experience. And so often what we see is utilities using Flume to better inform customers of what's happening in their home, whether or not they have leaks on their property, understanding their water usage so they can manage their bills. That is a huge value kind of across the board for utilities. As we're starting to get deeper with them, they're wanting to use it as customer engagement platforms to be able to actually directly communicate with Flume customers, segment those customers, even potentially do some demand management. So the utility partnerships have been really natural for us and make up about half of our business, actually. Half is consumer, half is utilities. So they've been great to work with over these past couple of years.
Simon, do we have you now?
I don't know, John. Is this 3 strikes, you're out?
You're in. You're in. You're in. All right. It's time for your quick overview. What is iWater, and introduce yourself to everybody. Just a minute or two.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, John, and appreciate you having this chat here so that we can talk about something that's really important. But co-founder of iWater Tech, we do a smart shower system. We're all about saving water when you don't notice. So almost 50% of the time that you run a shower, you're not directly underneath it, and we're just trying to save water when you don't need it. And Eric, you talked about starting your company as your senior project. Well, this feels like I started this as my senior project, but that was 32 years ago. So it's been quite a journey. So
Simon, so iWater, where are you based?
Mountain View, California.
And who are your customers? Who's pulling for this?
Well, so we're doing all B2B, and just as the utility discussion was going on, for all the same reasons, one channel that we have is the utilities, and trying to get to them because they want the data. The end user gets the conservation, they get the reduction in their costs, but the utilities want the data. So that's one channel, and the other channel we had was hotels. But now that the hospitality industry has somewhat imploded, we're not going to put a lot of weight there for the next little bit.
So, Mark, you've you've dabbled, I shouldn't say dabbled, that's not the right word, but you've made some inroads into multifamily and into food service. How is the food service pulling for smart water tools? Can you introduce us to sort of that world of restaurants and their problems and their objectives?
Yeah. So not unlike in your home or multifamily, I think the value proposition is very, very similar. We went in to all markets, just exploring markets and trying to understand what resonates. And what resonates for me is sustainability. What resonates is saving water and saving money. And I joke we didn't name the company Alert Labs for a reason. It turns out, though, that restaurants are also very keenly interested in knowing if there is a leak situation in the property. And so I think of that as what turns their heads, but it's not really the reason to buy. The reason to buy is that we can tell them exactly how they're using their water. We can look for recommendations and create recommendations in terms of behavioral use, as well as fixture and faucet use. And so we come across situations where folks may have a pre-rinse faucet that's flowing at 7.5 gallons a minute at 30 minutes a clip through the course of a day. And it's because somebody's just letting that faucet ride, or they're defrosting a big turkey with it. There's some crazy behaviors like that. Well, those one-off behaviors, if you make that shift, and I'm not exaggerating, we found situations where we've been able to save 5,000 gallons a month just by making very simple adjustments to fixtures, faucets, and behaviors. So that's certainly a key part of it, but saving that money, but again, also leaks. And like I said earlier, restaurants not only can have damage from a leak situation, they also can have lost revenue. And so when the owner of a restaurant or manager from a restaurant comes in the morning and there's water on the floor, not only do they have to deal with that mess, they have to shut down the kitchen for maybe a shift or two, or sometimes more, depending on the day. So we actually see the value that we can bring in a restaurant because of those things, as well as the energy savings. And I don't want to monopolize the time, but dishwashers use a lot of energy, and those guys are running that dishwasher sometimes every 5 minutes in a restaurant. And so if we can optimize the use of those dishwashers, tracking how they behave and how they use, it's a behavioral change that not only saves water but saves money. So we think we could save said differently, we can create about $10,000 in value a year for a typical restaurant location.
So, and the idea of that marketplace is, if you get into one, you get into a whole chain of them, because usually restaurants
ideally, right?
That's right. Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're also looking at multifamily apartment towers, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we kind of have a two beachheads, if you will, and multifamily is the second part of that. But again, the value proposition is very much similar to what we're seeing elsewhere in restaurant. Leaks are a particular problem in multifamily. Is if you have a leak on the 10th floor, you're dealing now not just that particular tenant, but everybody on and below. Mm-hmm. So plumbing systems are complex in multifamily. That's why I mentioned that because of the way our unit is deployed, we can go on a riser, we can go on a vertical run on a floor, and allows our customers to have some flexibility. Do they want to monitor every single unit? Do they want to monitor the floor, the east and west wing of the floor by the riser? And so we have a number of configurations we're working with in the multifamily space.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, your hardware and subscription model, is that correct? Is that your revenue model?
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're a B2C customer, you just buy the product and you get the user interface and the app and that lifetime, just like, again, with a smart thermostat. For our fleet customers, so a fleet being an aggregated bunch of Aquantas, there is a recurring revenue piece to that. So that would be our utility clients, building management and building management systems, that sort of thing.
Eric, isn't that something you're also trying to get to? Is subscription?
Yeah, we're just almost there, John. So when we sell the product itself, the hardware, we don't charge a subscription fee for it right now. Of course, it's great too from a business model perspective, but it's also challenging to kind of add on another monthly fee for your typical residential customer. Where we are seeing success, though, is that, as I mentioned earlier, the utilities wanting access to that data as well. And it's very valuable data to them, and very obviously valuable data to them, and they're willing to pay for that. So we're beginning to charge them recurring fees to access a portal that allows them to see usage across the entire district on an individual home level, as long as the user is also willing to share the data. And that's already become pretty successful for us, and the utilities are really liking what we're offering. So we're getting our recurring kind of through the B2B channel, if you will.
Mark, is that your objective as well, is to get into that subscription model?
Yeah. For us, because of the intensity of the machine learning, it doesn't, it's really not an option. And so we do have that kind of cost side from the machine learning, but certainly from a value creation side, we're seeing that the subscription fee absolutely warrants the value that is created, especially again in the restaurant space and the multifamily space.
And Simon, what's your revenue model, your business model? It's hardware plus a subscription, or how do you do it?
Yeah, a little bit of subscription. Exactly what Eric has been talking about with the utilities looking for that data. We've partnered with a company called Smart Energy and Water that does all the back-end systems for utilities. So they already charge for aggregation and presentation and analysis of all the electrical data that comes from their users. And so we will add on a component of that for water. And then as being the hardware provider, we'll get a percentage of that. But from our business model perspective, the bulk is the hardware sales at this point.
So we're 23 minutes into the discussion. If you can see on the right side, there's a chat module over there. And so going forward, we might get some questions that come in. Just wanted to draw your attention to that. But back to the discussion. So because we have a few minutes left, Mark, the machine learning and sort of the training of the algorithms, it seems like that's a crucial part of success. Can you share with everybody a little bit about sort of the intensity of the training and what that means and
Sure.
and how that's creating value?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of the proudest accomplishment for our team is that aspect of it. So, with any machine learning project, it's very easy if I build a model for my home and then just replicated that, and I would have very accurate results. And that's true if I'm forecasting Happy Meal toys for McDonald's in a restaurant versus all 20,000 restaurants. So that's true all the time. What we've really innovated is a way for the machine to self-learn. And so while we're using machine learning techniques, what we did was innovate and really crafted and invented a way for that sensor to self-learn. And so we deploy a sensor, whether it is in a McDonald's or a diner or a multifamily restaurant, a university, any location. In 7 days of normal water use, we teach the sensor and the data to understand what's happening. And so that iteration and self-learning with near zero involvement from the property owner is really the kind of the innovation that we've come up with from a machine learning perspective.
Is there a way to accelerate that training process? I'm sure you think about this all the time.
Yeah, think about it as the Borg, right? So with more sensors and more deployments, the machines are going to get smarter. And so, we're going to market with a 7-day commitment, but we think that can get down to 3 days over time.
There's a question that just came in for you, Mark, from Peter Williams. What is the self-learning? Is it auto ML?
Yeah, I mean, it's a proprietary approach that we've crafted. I mean, you can imagine some of the underlying techniques are the normal suspects like neural networks. But what we're doing, because we have some advantages, we know what water use looks like in a home, for example. 3 to 5% of the day water is on. We know that a toilet flushes at 30 to 90 seconds, and it's typically 1.6 gallons. We have all of these known variables that go into it. And so what we're doing is think of it as a recursive analytic that allows the system to continue to improve until it starts to hit the standards that we would expect.
Mm-hmm. Simon, in terms of customer engagement, and then Matt, I wanted to ask you, what kind of dashboard visibility does the customer have into the product? Is it on a smartphone, tablet? Tell me a little bit about your development of a visualization tool.
Yeah, so we have an app that gives that's a mobile version of a dashboard. So they get kind of the depth of last showers over historical data over time. Because we're tied into the utilities, they can compare to other people in their zip code. We also tell them how much energy they're using, and based on the rates for water and for energy, we calculate that as a cost, so that we give them an actual how much you're spending, and then we get into the breakdown of, well, how much time did you leave the water on before you got into the shower, and how long did it take for your water to heat up, so that it was at the temperature that you wanted, and then you get in at that point, and then how much time did you spend under the shower head versus not under the shower head. But we've set it up on a dashboard so that you can actually have a scoreboard. So if your kids want to have a school project and they want to compete who saves the most water, you can hook it up for something like that.
Have you done one of those, the school project with the?
No, not yet. We're ready, but haven't got enough of them out there yet.
Well, if anybody in the audience has any ideas about how Simon could work with the school district to get a competition going on water savings, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Love it. Yeah.
Matt, what is your visibility tool? How does the customer see Aquanta?
Yeah, so we have 2 dashboards and a third, which would be an integration with our API, where our Aquanta data is being represented on the third-party system. But the 2 dashboards that we've got, one is for our end customers, and the other one is for our fleet customers. So the end customer can access the Aquanta dashboard on any connected device, and then be able to control their water heater remotely, kind of set it in vacation or away mode. So there's a whole litany of control features that we've got. There's also some metering on that, so that tells the customer how much energy they've been using, what the use pattern has looked like over time. Most people have no clue about actually their general energy use of water, and also their water use, and that's actually really part, I think, of the exciting part of all these companies are doing, and I think Flume is in particular, that this domain around how much water and how much energy is being used is pretty sparse, and so being able to quantify that, and so that to the energy conscious end user, this is something that they can use to I guess calibrate how much energy they're using for their water heater. The Aquanta has a machine learning piece to it as well, so it's trying to turn off if you're not using it. And then on the fleet side, we're able to aggregate a bunch of devices and show how much energy that fleet is using when they're off or on, what control modes are being used, etc. So that allows utilities to and their implementation partners to quantify, hey, how much energy am I saving from deploying a fleet of Aquantas? How many of them are online at any given time? When has there been a leak alert, etc. So there's a couple dashboards that we have that sort of system analytics and telemetry on their water heater behavior.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Flume. So I have a Flume at home. There's the dashboard right there, Eric. Thanks for creating such a beautiful dashboard.
You're welcome. It's getting better every day.
Yeah, it is. And I would encourage anybody to, the second part of this discussion, we're going to take a break for a minute or two and do some poll questions. But the second half of this is going to be focused on integration with the rest of the smart home ecosystem. Water feels a little bit like an outsider, at least I sense that. And so a big part of our next 30 minutes is how can this dashboard increase its interoperability and integration with other mainstream Alexa and Google Home and Apple Home offerings. So that's the second half hour. So we're going to take a break. I know everyone's at home right now. So if you want to go to the kitchen and freshen up your drink or biological break, you're welcome to do so. I'm going to do a poll right here for everybody to, how do I go live with this? Start poll, publish. I should be able to see real time how many people are clicking at things. Can you see that? Oh, there we go.
Ooh. A smart speaker counts as one, according to most like.
Can you control it from your phone? Do you need to control it?
Yeah.
I mean, some things are one way to traffic, like the smoke detector. I don't need to control it. I just need to know.
Right.
More than 5. All right, so it's coming in. It's about a third. Okay, that doesn't tell us too much. All right, so just for your information there, it's a third. Oh, 3 to 5 is pulling ahead. Just quickly, lightning round, because we're taking a little break from the Mark, what do you have when in your home that's smart? And I'm going to go around to all of you. What do you have what are your top 2 or 3 smart things?
Of course, I have H2O. I also have Flume. I don't know if I mentioned that, Eric. Sitting right next to each other. I would say my first was probably a camera. I have, internet-enabled camera systems. I have both the Ring and Arlo.
Okay. Eric, what was your first besides Flume?
Yeah, honestly, Flume was the first.
Okay.
And then added Nest to that, Nest thermostat. A really interesting one I just set up is an Orbit irrigation controller. So Orbit irrigation is kind of really now moved into the smart home space as well. And now that our systems talk to each other, it's pretty interesting to see those two get connected and can access the data on the app. So
yeah, I was really excited for you, Eric, when you connected with a bigger player in irrigation. I think that in the second half hour, we're going to talk a little bit about hanging out with kids in the playground and working your product into other people's stuff. Simon, any smart home stuff?
Yeah, love Amazon Key so that deliveries can be sent straight inside, and then Sense from looking at electrical consumption is great. Fantastic resolution on the data.
And Matt?
Yeah, we've got the usual suspects. We've got a Nest thermostat, got a Ring doorbell, got the Sonos speaker, a smattering of Echo hockey pucks around the house, so kids can ask it to tell them jokes.
Cool.
So we're not overloaded though.
Cool. Second poll just came up. What has been your biggest frustration with smart home devices or appliances? Hope you can see it.
Ooh.
What do I do? I got an alert.
You see where the first person answered.
Eric, on yours, and like everyone who's kind of multitasking at your desk at home, we're taking a little bit of a break at the bottom of the hour to do some polling. Eric, on my Flume, I get an alert that says potential leak detected. Water's been running for 2 hours at 1.99 gallons every minute.
It's a lot of water, John.
That triggers a course of action that I feel like we have a condo association. I feel like we're improvising. It would be interesting, and this is just some feedback in front of the whole world, Eric. It'd be interesting. It said potential leak detection. Here are some options that you or your condo association or you and your spouse can. Here's some suggested things you could like. You go to the flapper valve in every toilet. You go look in the basement. You go like here. That would be interesting to give a cheat sheet of different things you could. Because people like my neighbors and I, we never agree on what should we be doing. All right, it's coming in at 64%. Too many different platforms to manage. I don't know. Can you see the results on? Can you see the results on your screens? Sorry, this is new to me.
Yeah.
Oh, you can. Good. All right, that doesn't shock me either. Number 2 is lack of suggestions to optimize usage. All right, end that poll. And we're going to go back to the last one here.
Oh, you even have vacuum on there.
It's a last minute addition. If there's something else you think we're missing on here, I guess speakers would be one. Irrigation, pool. Pool is another we thought of.
Yeah, energy management too. I mean, companies like Sense have done really well coming up with the solution there. And there's a lot of competitors in that space too.
Energy management, what do you mean by that?
Like electricity monitoring, understanding where electricity is going in the home.
Anybody have one of those in our group here?
Somebody mentioned it.
Sense?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are a handful of those platforms out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
And a lot of
surprise me.
folks just,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, a lot of folks opt for sort of these, for particular higher end homes, like Crestron or Control 4, right? These kind of integrated systems, right? And because what we're talking about, and I think this is going to be a theme for the second half, and this was borne out in your poll, of that we have so many point solutions out there, right? And that's untenable, and it's not a satisfying customer experience, and it's definitely under leveraging what's possible in the smart home. So and you've got these handful of companies, but they're really high end, typically for high end homes, right? And you have a pro tech come in and put it in along with all the security stuff, but that's like tens of thousands of dollars typically to have all that stuff plugged in and programmed.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Matt. So that is the topic of the next 22 minutes is integrating with the rest of the smart home industry. Eric, so Orbit, they're kind of a player in irrigation. They're not the number one name, but they're up there. They reached out to you and they said, we need you in our ecosystem, or how did that work?
Yeah, it pretty organically started a few conferences we were going to. So Orbit is really kind of the biggest name in the consumer space. So if you are a consumer going and buying irrigation control yourself, Orbit is likely what you're going to be buying. The other three main ones are, of course, Rachio as consumers, then Hunter and Rainbird. All of them, though, have had challenges with understanding how much water is being used for irrigation, right? So you can turn your irrigation controller on. The connected ones will tell you that zone 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 is on. They're not going to tell you that zone 1 just used 200 gallons more than it did last week because there's a broken pipe in that zone, since they have no idea how much water is used. So it's a really natural fit for us to say, okay, we'll share our data with you. You tell us what zone is on. And now we can provide that to the customer and say, hey, here's an issue in your lawn over here. Or if you want to reduce your overall consumption, here's a really easy way to do it with that data in the Orbit app. So that's the real value by connecting both those products.
So I have an Orbit, I have a Beehive, that's their brand.
Yep.
Is Flume on the Orbit? Are you fully integrated into the, or do you have to have the Flume and the Orbit, the Beehive?
So you have to have Flume and Orbit, but you can see the data inside the Orbit app. So you can actually go into your Orbit app, you can integrate the two products, and then it will tell you in your Orbit app how much water was used per zone. It's an early, the integration is early right now, and the whole UI, UX piece is going to continue developing. But it's a start for sure, which is exciting.
Simon, how could you fit within a larger smart building or smart home platform? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we'd fit in great because we actually control it at the point of use. So anybody that's doing kind of the whole home mapping out consumption, we fit into that as a controlling it at point of use. And once you get point of use control placed throughout the entire home, now you're mapping it and you're doing something about it. So it's not just information at that point, it's information that you can take advantage of. And I think, as Mark was talking about earlier, as you get more and more data out there, that's what we don't know. We don't know how that machine learning, how that AI, how people's habits are predictable. And once you start learning their habits, then you can start working around them and making conservation really, really easy for people. And something that is just done really without them noticing. And that's kind of where we're looking at this, is we do the control, and then tie that in with mapping would be a great connection.
But have you had, Simon, have you had any progress with Google Home or Alexa? I mean, I've got some of these apps, and I'm trying to imagine myself opening up the Google Home app and doing what with iWater. What would I do? What would be my behavior?
Yeah, so I think more so than we want to be invisible. So you wouldn't open up Google Home. You wouldn't talk to Alexa about okay, tell me when my shower's reached my temperature. I mean, you can do that, but what we want to do is we want to work with, hey, we know what time you get up in the morning. So then now working with Matt, for example, now bring your water heater up 5 minutes before you're going to get in your shower. Right? Mm-hmm. Or we know when you typically do your laundry, so work out where the water goes when, right? I mean, it's really working behind the scenes, and the data is interesting and valuable, I think, to the end user, but to the utilities, once they have that data, now they can start making it actionable. Right, and they can start incentivizing, whether it's peak power related, peak water related, they can start kind of saying, okay, hey, well, we'll charge different rates at different times, and you've got that data to allow that, to enable that. So
we had a question a couple minutes ago, and I wanted to get to it. It's scroll down a little bit. Jeff Guild, I know it's Paul asking via Jeff. The data from last downturn, 2008, showed that water use dropped. Yada yada yada. Some of you guys have been chatting with utilities on a day-to-day basis. Since COVID-19 started, have they communicated that water use has been falling?
It's got to be higher with shelter in place. It's got to be. Everybody's home. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, but significantly.
Yeah. Good question.
I'll talk to that a little bit. Since we have a lot of partners in the utility space, it's been pretty interesting to see what's happening with the whole COVID situation. With everyone staying home, water usage doubling or even tripling for a lot of customers. And they're just starting to get hit with that first bill, right? Because bills are often delayed 1 month or even 2 months by the time they actually get them. And so there's been a big demand actually by the water utilities wanting to provide solutions to customers, because now, 16% of people don't have jobs, they don't have a lot of money. Now all of a sudden they're staying home, their bills are going higher. Providing something to customers to help them actually take into action is really important right now. And we're seeing a real uptick in our utility kind of partnerships because of that, which is
so Eric. So I guess the question, household is certainly up, but with restaurants and I guess restaurants are still open doing carry out and stuff, but with most of the economy closed, I would imagine the aggregate water use might be down.
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that across the board. I just know on a residential level what we're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, going forward, if you, in your conversations with utilities, if they give you some feedback on how it's trending, share it with me, please. And I'll share it with the group that's on this call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question has come up a couple of times about cybersecurity. Anybody care to chat about your efforts or your concerns with cybersecurity and your product in the smart home, or what you're doing to mitigate it?
Got to have a really strong back end.
Yeah, same thing.
Can you elaborate on it a little bit, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we have basically a cryptologist who's worked with us developing our back end security. I mean, I'm in no way that technical. Our CTO has really kind of owned that process of working with the back end developer that ensures it's highly secure. And I know a lot of people will say like, hey, it's just water data. It's not that big of a deal. And I mean, it's true in some ways. Like we're not capturing video here. We're not taking video of people in their home, but you can still determine, whether or not someone's home or they're away based on that data. And so it is extremely important to make sure that's extremely secure. And, when we go work with like an insurance company or something, for example, the data security agreements that you have to agree to are pretty incredible. So we're very on top of the cybersecurity aspect of the company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any thoughts on that, on the cybersecurity?
You're just consistent with that. The Conservation Labs team, interestingly enough, came out of the media and advertising space that has a very long history of protecting consumer privacy and data and financial data. And so we're applying the same standards that we would have applied when we had banks as customers in prior life.
Mhm.
To Eric's point, and probably for different reasons, but water behavior in a restaurant is a great indicator of revenue, right?
Mhm.
So it would not be hard for somebody to model revenue for a restaurant based off of their water use. And so for slightly different reasons, we have to be equally cautious and concerned about it.
Right. Peter has been asking these questions. If you do have, if your company does have questions about cybersecurity, Peter Williams, who's on this call, might be a good person to chat with. He's got a lot of ideas about where and how you could take some precautions and get out ahead of things before they happen. Marianne Dickinson from the Alliance of Water Efficiency, aggregate water use is definitely down 20 to 40%. There's a number right there. So
great to
for
see
those
Marianne
of you,
on here.
Yeah, for those of you not familiar, Marianne is executive director of Alliance for Water Efficiency, of which Mazarine is members. And we actually are planning a survey with Alliance for Water Efficiency to poll their membership on smart home and smart building and water. So while we've got just a few minutes left, what are the headwinds in the smart home for water? It's behind the walls. It's a little bit more esoteric. Anybody who want to share some experience, Simon? What have been some of the headwinds for you? Phobia,
plumbing phobia. People are just scared to death to touch their plumbing. I mean, I'm amazed that for our pilot builds, we were giving our units away to people that cared about water conservation, and 8 out of 10 would not install them just because they, even unscrewing the shower head, as simple as that is, just scared to death of plumbing. So I think that's our biggest challenge, is that and the combination that the perception is water is free. Water is a right, water is free. So yeah, I want to conserve, I want to do good, but not good enough to actually touch my plumbing. So that's what we're seeing.
Matt, what are some of the headwinds you've seen in getting your product to scale?
Well, I mean, at a macro level, you've got kind of touch across a number of different ecosystems. So, in the smart home and the B2C smart home, right? You've got a bunch of smart home early adopters who are willing to buy the product, right? So that's why you've gotten smart thermostats, millions of them out there. But you've also got utilities who are, let's say, incredibly conservative, right? In how they adopt technology, how they deploy it, how they just move on contracting, et cetera. And then if you're talking about other distribution, you're talking about who touches water, right? Well, it's typically plumbers. They are at the very bottom end of when it comes to technology adoption. So you've got kind of technology moving faster than some of these other ecosystems that you operate with, and that just causes friction in the gears, right?
Yeah, John, I have thoughts on this too. I think the biggest challenge for us and for a few people on this call is that, we are not replacing something that already exists. Like Nest came in and they replaced a thermostat, right? Everyone had a thermostat. So there was already a market for thermostats, and they came in and made a better mousetrap. With us, there is no smart water there was no, you had your water meter, but you got a bill, but that's essentially what we're replacing in many ways. And so there isn't that analog there. And you really have to, it's really marketing. You have to educate customers. You have to tell them that a market like this exists. So that's the headwind. But what's interesting is that we've seen, once people know this exists, once they know they can get it, they want it. When we do like a utility program, if they email 100,000 people, 3,000 people are going to purchase our product. We have about a 3% conversion rate when a utility program happens. And so once people are aware of it, it's a highly desirable solution for them to have. So I think there is interest with smart water across the board. People just don't know it exists yet.
Just got a good question in from Jake Resnick in New York about incentives in place from utility. I guess in San Antonio, Eric, that the utility is providing rebates. That is an incentive. But like smart energy programs, can anybody comment on tailwinds that you're seeing from the policy side that could drive sales or adoption? Matt, maybe on the energy side for hot water, is there anything you're seeing?
Yeah. Well, so on the energy side, there's an enormous amount of tailwind, and those are the tailwinds. Is not just that, on the energy side, but on adoption of smart building technology, because there's a lot of reasons why homeowners and building owners want to have this tech in the building, right? So, but on the energy side, you have things like increasing penetration of renewables out on the grid, right? And climate change is causing their grid management models to go out the window. And so having controllable assets like a water heater is very much spurring on these programs. And furthermore, on the energy efficiency side, a lot of energy efficiency programs the lowest hanging fruit was lighting, actually. And so that's fairly well the old installed base of lighting has been replaced. So utilities are looking for other ways to help their users save energy, because they have dollars to spend that they're mandated to put towards energy efficiency. So there's an awful lot of actually tailwinds around energy management and energy efficiency. So
thanks for that answer. What about on the water side? Has anybody seen anything else on the water side?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about regulatory tailwinds all day. I mean, especially in California, for example, there's the 20 by 2020 reduction, requiring customers to reduce their overall water consumption, the 55 gallons per day per capita rule that's been implemented. And so, the cities and the states are telling customers to reduce their consumption to a certain amount, but there really is no data there to really understand indoor outdoor usage, per capita usage, until we kind of came along. So the regulatory tailwinds are definitely there for us. And then again, with the utilities, they have rebate dollars. I mean, very, very significant rebate dollars. San Antonio is a great example of that, where we have thousands of customers that have signed up for Flume, and most of them have purchased Flume for $30 or less. Right now, if you're in San Antonio, it's free for you to get Flume. So the utilities are definitely, putting their money where their mouth is on the rebate side and helping support the system.
Yeah, and another unfortunate tailwind on the water side is increasing water rates, right? So, if you look at water rates, they've significantly increased over a recent 5-year period. Some surveys suggest as much as 40% on average. I know I just received mine. I have my exhibit here from PAWC that they're going to bump our rates by 15%, and we're already 7 times higher than average. So this will put us about 10 times higher than average in the US. So I think we're just ahead of the curve here at about $15 per thousand gallons. It's going to be coming elsewhere across the US. We're not the most expensive, by the way, in the US, but we're certainly up there.
So while we've got a few minutes left, besides what you're doing now in the leak detection and flow monitoring and hot water monitoring and shower monitoring, is there another realm of water in the smart home that, if I said you could switch to another side of this, that you would be motivated to do? Is there anything else that excites you about water in the smart home besides what you're doing now?
That's kind of a loaded question, I think. I'm a big
right. If we told you, we'd have to kill you.
Right.
Just curious. I mean, it's a growing ecosystem. There's a lot of ways to play water in the smart home besides what you're doing.
I'm a fan of water quality as well, John. I mean,
quality.
And I know there's some things that Mazarine's involved in around water quality. I think is very important, and it's a big problem to solve, and it's an important one. So certainly water quality.
So what would be, Mark? What would be the play there? So I would look on my phone and I would be able to see what? My water quality.
Well, I think I think it's two things. In the home, it's interesting on some periodic basis, right? So once a quarter, I want to ensure that my family is safe, and that may even sound too frequent for some, but the reality is that weather changes water quality, turbidity in the river for where the water comes from changes water quality. All those things matter. Now, in aggregate, I think it really matters, right? So it's maybe where the utilities and others would be more interested. So PAWC, my water utility, I know exactly where they test the water quality. It's right where they draw it in a river from about a half a mile from my house. And that's the only place they test water quality. they don't test it through the distribution system at all.
Mm-hmm.
So having that information, I think, would make the system smarter and make the infrastructure better.
So if you're looking for a water quality testing company, I've got a good one in my back pocket, just in case. Eric, what about you? If you weren't doing this, what other side of water in the smart home excites you?
I mean, honestly, I kind of want to answer no to your original question. I think there's such a need for water data for so many different players out there that I want us to stay laser focused on water. I don't want to get distracted by doing anything else in the smart home related to water. However, what I do want us to do is take all that data that we're acquiring and provide it to different players in the space. So, I mean, if you look at all of your appliances in your home, they're becoming increasingly more connected. We can provide data to customers to let them know exactly how much water is being used per appliance. For example, irrigation with Orbit is a great example of that, providing that data to the water utilities, working with insurance companies with that data. So, driving more value out of the data we're providing by having these partnerships is where I see us really focusing. That's what I want to focus on.
Okay, that's fine. I'll ask you offline what other areas of water in the smart home interest you.
Okay.
But so Eric, they would API into your, so a third party like a dishwasher, washing machine, or something. They would API into your data on X, Y, and Z home.
Yeah, kind of works with Flume almost. That's exactly what Orbit's doing. We're also we're going to be able to do that pretty soon here. Full disaggregation without the need for those integrations, but those integrations can help as well.
Cool. Simon, I'm going to continue on this line of questioning. If you weren't doing smart shower, what other part of water in the smart home or smart building excites you?
Yeah, it's got to be the unknown with all that data. So kind of similar trends here, but this data is starting to come in now. So what are we doing with it? I mean, I don't think we know what could happen with it, but it's not just in the home, but think of it home to home, and then home to business, and home to processing plants. And as we start getting it in, just that, okay, there's so much data, and now we have more data processing capabilities than we've ever had. So how do we really use that to pick up the little bits and pieces?
So to summarize a little bit, if you weren't running iWater, you would want to do something on the data aggregation side to provide value and visibility into water quantity or quality use across the aggregate. Sounds kind of cool.
Absolutely. Think about what people do with data on the internet, right? About the internet, right? Or about electricity. We need to do the same thing with water.
Matt, what else excites you in this water in the smart building or smart home?
Listen, I'm going to punt like Eric we've so barely scratched the surface around what can be done with the use cases around water heaters and water heater management. I mean, there's 125 million storage water heaters installed in North America alone, and that's not to say anything about the rest of the world. So, and there's different verticals where having telemetry around your water heater means different things and has different value. And so, I think we've got our plate full and a lot of value to unlock just from focusing on, hey, what are the use cases and the verticals that are relevant for for what we're doing.
Cool. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to hang out with you and have this conversation. And for everybody who are starting to drop, because we're at the top of the hour, I'm looking at the numbers. Thanks for eavesdropping on our little conversation here. I hope you learned something, and I hope the four of you will find opportunities to connect offline with each other and explore more synergies. With that brings us to the end of our hour. And thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, guys. Good to see you.